Okay, folks, I'll be 100% honest. I'm a bit late. I'm a bit late to get on the bandwagon. All in relation to Dubai chocolate. This podcast is all about Dubai chocolate. This podcast is going to teach you so much information about Dubai chocolate. Think about the who, the what, the where, the when, the why. Like, why does a bar of Dubai chocolate cost like $40, $100? It makes no sense. Or does it? You'll find out soon. This is an advanced level podcast. I went down the rabbit hole. I looked into Dubai chocolate. I found out so much interesting information about it, and I turned it into a podcast. There's a little bit of a story, but this is very off the cuff. When I'm reading my story, if something comes up to teach, I will teach it. You know how it goes. But maybe you want something more formal, and if you do, don't worry, I got your back. There's a more formal version of this podcast also available. Check the show notes. You'll find it. This is for advanced learners of English. Are you ready to learn not just English, but also learn about Dubai chocolate? Here we go. Do you like chocolate? What's your favorite type of chocolate? Do you have like a particular brand of chocolate that you enjoy? Do you have a particular type of chocolate that you enjoy? I think chocolate is amazing. I absolutely love it. However, rather than talking just about chocolate, we're going to talk about a very specific type of chocolate. And the chocolate we are going to talk about is Dubai chocolate. So I was recently in a grocery store and something caught my eye. There was like a special stand, and in that stand there was a brightly coloured package and it had gold writing on it, so it was very appealing and it caught my eye. And then I saw the price, and it was 20 Canadian dollars for a bar of chocolate, and that was on sale from 40 Canadian dollars, so it was 50% off, and it still cost $20. I thought that was crazy. So I leaned in a little closer and I saw why it's so expensive. It has the word Dubai on it. Dubai. I'm a firm believer that if you put the word Dubai on anything today, it's going to sell. People are going to want to buy it purely for the word Dubai. And suddenly, all over the supermarkets in Canada, in BC, I started to notice more and more Dubai chocolate. Now, I haven't bought one, and I'm probably not going to because it's mad expensive. But I was very interested in it. And I was really interested in the story behind Dubai chocolate. Like, who made Dubai chocolate? Is it actually from Dubai? Why does it cost $20 on sale? Why does it cost 40 Canadian dollars to buy a bar of chocolate? What is so special about this type of chocolate? So I went online and I started to research and I started to look into Dubai chocolate. And I really wanted to know what the story is. What the heck is going on with it? And I did. And I found some really cool stuff. So I wrote a little story, but I'm not going to read the story word for word, but I'm going to tell you the story about Dubai chocolate. And I title this story, Can't Get Enough of It. Can't Get Enough of It. Alright, here we go. Dubai chocolate has taken the world by storm. You can purchase a bar of chocolate for $1, or you can splurge and purchase a bar of Dubai chocolate for anywhere between $20 $200. But where did this expensive chocolate bar start? Sarah Hamouda and her husband Yazin Alani were brought up in the UK but moved to Dubai in about 2011. In 2021, when Sarah Hamouda was working from home and pregnant, she got cravings. Cravings for a particular flavour. Cravings for kanafe. Kanafe? It's an Arab dessert that has a nice crunch to it. She wanted to create a combination of the popular Arab dessert with milk chocolate. And in her kitchen, she started to do just that. Now, somewhere along the line, Sarah wanted to take this dessert to the next level. But, unfortunately, because she was an engineer, she lacked the particular skills needed to turn her idea into something more. So generally speaking, what do you do when you have an idea you want to bring to life, but you lack the skills? You get help. And that's what Sarah did. Enter Chef Noel Cadiz, a Filipino culinary consultant who also trained as a pastry chef. Raised in Dapong City in Mindanao, Philippines, a really, really small town where everybody knows everyone, he's always been a big dreamer. His mother owned a restaurant where she cooked and baked, but he gravitated towards baking. In his words, baking was his comfort zone. Okay, so that's just the start. That's just how it begins. And no joke, you can actually splurge and purchase a bar of Dubai chocolate for anywhere between $20 or $200. To splurge. I love splurging. Recently, I splurged on an axe. An axe, for splitting wood. I bought a brand new 28-inch Fiskars wood chopping axe and I splurged on it. I spent 100 Canadian dollars on that axe. It's not cheap, but it's a very good quality. A very high quality. Made in Finland it is. Fiskars is the brand, but I splurged on it. I normally would not spend that much money on things, but a good axe, I'm going to splurge on that. When you splurge on something, you are spending a lot of money on it for a purpose. Recently it was my wife's birthday, so we splurged and we went to a fancy restaurant. It was beautiful. The food was amazing. And we don't eat out too often. Don't go out to restaurants. Don't drink. Don't do anything like that. So when we go out, we want to do it in style, and we dressed up and we splurged on food, and it was really, really tasty. I loved it. Now, we weren't incredibly happy because one of the menu items that we really, really, really wanted wasn't available. So we're kind of let down, which means we have to go back. But because we splurged, it's not really the kind of place we're going to go too often. Anyways, that's not related to the story. Another thing I mentioned in there was Sarah Hamouda. So Sarah Hamouda is a key player, the main player in all of this. And she was pregnant and she had cravings for kanafe. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. So she had pregnancy cravings. If you have ever been pregnant, did you have any cravings? What food did you crave when you were pregnant? So, in terms of Dubai chocolate, Sarah got the idea to create this when her pregnancy cravings kicked in, when she had pregnancy cravings. But cravings are not only for when you're pregnant. Have you ever had a nicotine craving? If there's any smokers here, or former smokers, you probably get nicotine cravings. If you're a coffee drinker and you don't drink coffee, do you get a craving for coffee? A craving is like that really strong, intense desire, and it can take over your thoughts completely. That is a craving. It's a drive, and it influences your behavior. It makes you do things, think things, and just act differently until you either get over the craving or satisfy the craving. Give in to the craving. You know, maybe after you do a bunch of exercise, you got a good craving for salt. You really want salty food or something. When you're hungover, are you craving any particular meals? For me, whenever I do a big hike, I'm usually craving a dirty pizza for after a huge hike. I'm talking like a big hike, not just a small one, maybe a 2-day hike. But that first bite or drink of an ice cold, fizzy drink of some sort, that is the best craving ever to satisfy. Maybe you're working really hard and you're craving an ice cold beer. Did you know that cravings are actually driven by our brain's reward pathway system? And there's like neurotransmitters, there's memory, there's environmental cues, there's so much going on which makes these cravings stronger. So, what cravings do you have? Do you have any unhealthy cravings? Could be for drugs, could be a behavior. Do your cravings change depending on your mood, depending on your hormones, depending on anything like that? Like, what changes your cravings? So, because Sarah had cravings for knafe and milk chocolate, she started to make a chocolate bar. I mean, that's a good use of your time. That is a very good capitalization on a craving, where you just bite into it and you're thinking, shit, this is good. People are going to want it. So next time you finish work and you want to invite a friend for a beer, you can say, oh, I'm craving a beer. Do you want to go grab one? Or next time you want to get away from work or something, you want to get away from somewhere, you could just say, guys, I'm craving a coffee. I'll be right back. I'm craving a. That just really means that you really want something. When you're on your period, do you have cravings for a particular type of food? Okay, moving on from cravings. I mentioned how Sarah Hamuda and her husband, Yazin Alani, were brought up in the UK. And then I mentioned how Chef Noel was raised in the Philippines. And to be brought up in. So Hamuda and Alani were brought up in the UK. Folks, you know my name, it's Ronan. I was brought up in a very good environment. I was brought up in a house that was always warm, always had food in the fridge, and people who love me. I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate. I know that. Because many people are not brought up in such a good environment. You can be brought up in poverty. You can be brought up in stress, brought up in war, brought up in conflict, brought up in anything at all. Addiction, for instance. So when we use brought up, it's not only for a place. Yes, I was brought up in Ireland. That's one. But I was also brought up in a very good environment. That's another way to use it. So think about yourself. Where were you physically brought up? Where were you physically raised? And then think about the environment that you're in. Think about the situation. Where were you brought up? Or what were you brought up in? Were you brought up in wealth? Were you brought up in affluence? Or were you brought up in the middle class? With enough to get by, not enough to splurge on things whenever you wanted? Or were you brought up in poverty? In violence, in a war zone? There's so many ways we can use it. A lot of my students say they come here to Canada to raise their family in peace outside of war. So they're moving here to bring up children in a safe and loving environment. It's absolutely beautiful.
I mean, it's horrible that they're going through that, but it's beautiful that there is an option for them that is safety. So those kids will be brought up in safety. They'll be brought up with education. They'll be brought up with a lot more opportunities than they had before, perhaps. Now, I also mentioned Chef Noel in that opening part of the story, and he's from the Philippines, and he's a culinary consultant, and he was raised in a kitchen, basically. So when I was looking him up, I got very interested, and I think I need to do a whole podcast just on him, because he's a genius. He is magnificent. Let's learn a little bit about him. So, like I said, his mother owned a restaurant where she cooked and she baked, but he gravitated towards baking. He preferred baking over cooking. Personally speaking, I love baking, cooking, not so much. So when it comes to baking, or when it comes to the kitchen, I'll always gravitate towards baking, just like Chef Noel, because in his words, baking was his comfort zone. So he eventually got to Dubai, and he went from being a demi-chef to a pastry chef in just 1 year. And after that, he worked all over the world. He worked in Beijing, China, the Maldives, Jordan. He even worked for Etihad, you know, the flight company, the airline. He worked for them with their in-flight chef program. So he was designing what the business class people eat. Now, I've never flown business. I would love to splurge on business class. And if I ever do, I'm going to have to pick the right airline, because I know the food served in business is meant to be divine. I would love to try it. And so here we have Chef Noel, and he designed Etihad's in-flight food. Sensational. Love it. In fact, it's not even in-flight food, in-flight chef program. That's how fancy it is. So basically, this guy is really, really good at what he does. After leaving Etihad, he opened his own consulting company, Nifty Chef. And today he calls himself a heritage chef. And that's a term that he coined himself. That'll be important later. So having worked in the Arab world, he learned that the Arab palates are very different to Western or Asian palates, and that the Arabs are using spices that are not common to Filipinos. Their appreciation for chocolate is obviously very, very different to other parts of the world. Like for you, when you get chocolate, do you want a milky chocolate? Because that's the type I love. I love milky chocolate. But then again, I also do enjoy some dark chocolate. And everywhere you go in the world, the chocolate is different. And so obviously, chocolate in the Philippines, chocolate in Canada, chocolate in Ireland, and chocolate in, say, Dubai, it's going to be very, very different. So for him, for Chef Noel, it was really important to embrace their heritage when creating products for them. Hence the term heritage chef. So he believes that if he's making products or food for Arabs, he really needs to tap into their palates. He needs to tap into their taste buds to see what they like and then use that for inspiration. He almost needs to not ignore, but not rely on his instinct as a Filipino, because he's not making food for Filipinos, he's making food for Arabs. In 2021, Sarah Hamuda and Chef Noel worked together founding the company Fix Dessert Chocolatier, and in 2021 he created the Can't Get Enough of It with Sarah Hamuda, who is now the owner of the company. He also created 5 more flavors for Fix Dessert Chocolatier. So Fix Dessert Chocolatier is the company that released the original Dubai chocolate. It wasn't called Dubai chocolate, it was called Can't Get Enough of It. And that is a company that Chef Noel and Sarah Hamuda set up together. that's also very important for later on. Chef Noel and Sarah Hamuda are working together. And remember I said he was a heritage chef? Well, this is very important for that because when he created Can't Get Enough of It, he obviously tapped into the Arab palate and the Arab dessert. And so he combined the Arab palate, like pistachio for example, with chocolate to create the first Dubai chocolate bar that we know today. In his words, quote, "I always touch on heritage to create something unique in the culinary world. That has been my formula," end quote. So for those who don't know, kanafe or kanaf is a traditional Arabic dessert made with pastry dough, sugar, cheese, pistachios. Chocolate, on the other hand, is not really part of that. So combining chocolate with that is obviously going to create something new. And it's basically like kanafe is to Arabs what cheesecake is to the West. It's a very popular dessert. Kanafe is to Arabs what cheesecake is to the West. A very popular dessert. I think that's a nice way to compare things and to give you an idea as to what this is. So let me think. In Canada, hockey is super popular. Hockey is the number one sport in Canada. Every kid plays hockey. Well, no, not every kid, but many kids play hockey. Rich kids mostly play hockey. Anyways, hockey is the number one sport in Canada. So, hockey is to Canadians what soccer is to Brazilians. I know soccer is incredibly popular in Brazil, like the number one sport. Even people who I know do not like watching soccer, who are Brazilian, will always watch the Brazilian national team play because it's just a huge part of their culture. So hockey is to Canadians what soccer is to Brazilians. And I think that would go for many countries. Like, I wonder what it is for Canada and Argentina. Is it still soccer for Argentinians? But then let's think about other places, like other foods or something like that. Now, I'm from Ireland. I am Irish. I was 100% born and raised in Ireland. And I want you to think about a drink that is super popular, like an alcoholic drink that is super popular in your country. What is it? Because Guinness is the number one choice in Ireland for stout, for beer. And if you go to Ireland, you absolutely have to have a Guinness. So Guinness is to the Irish what something is to you. In your country, what do people love to drink? And you could just exchange it there. Guinness is to Ireland what an ice cold lager is to Canadians. Ice cold lager. I say that because I don't really think there's one beer that would go for all of Canada. A bunch of my Muslim students recently celebrated Eid after Ramadan. And they were talking about it, and they all get together and they give gifts to each other, they eat nice food, they have a long party, they decorate their house. And so it got me thinking that Eid is for Muslims what Christmas is for Christians. You know, think about celebrations in your country compared to another country. Like if you're an immigrant and you're living somewhere, what is the equivalent in your country to a celebration? If you're an immigrant living in Ireland, what is the equivalent of St. Patrick's Day in your country? My brother is a huge runner. He's big into the running and he loves doing ultras. Like, you know, where you might run 100 kilometers or you might run for 12 hours without a break, that kind of, well, obviously you have a break, but you run for 12 hours. But he's a massive runner. I'm not. So running is for my brother what swimming is to me. I love swimming. I'm obsessed with swimming. I swim so much. I'm a fish. Okay, I'm not a fish, I'm a human. But I love swimming. He loves running. So the desire he has for running is the same desire I have for swimming. I'm just using this for example because I think his desire is a lot more. But running is for my brother what swimming is for me. It is my way to relax, my way to disconnect, my way to get away from things, to just focus on my breathing and go, go, go. Alright, so just to recap where we are now in the story. I mean. So Sarah and her husband moved to Dubai. Sarah got pregnant, she got knocked up, and then she started to have cravings for kanafe. And she started experimenting with mixing kanafe and chocolate, but she couldn't quite get it right. So Sarah reached out and she got help from Chef Noel, and together they established Fix Dessert Chocolatier, a company that would specialize in high-end fancy desserts. Now, Chef Noel is the technician, and he created Can't Get Kanafe, as well as several other bars for Fix Dessert Chocolatier. So they're not his, they belong to the company. When they did launch their very first bar, Can't Get Kanafe, Chef Noel had already parted ways with them, but he still worked with them, just not as co-owner. By this time, Sarah's husband had become a partner of the company. Chef Noel says, quote, "I was working as a friend of Sarah's. I was helping her out because I really wanted her to succeed," end quote. So that's where we are right now. You know, they set up a company together. He created a bunch of chocolate. He left the company, but he still worked with the company, but he didn't own the company anymore. It's interesting. But let's talk about how Dubai chocolate finally became popular, like finally. So creating the bar was a painstaking process. It took Noel and his team about 6 to 8 hours to complete because they did everything. They even put it in boxes and packaged the items themselves. And in total, they were only able to create 25 bars of chocolate a day. So not a huge amount were able to be created. So in 2022, they launched the very first version of the chocolate bar on their website. And their products were being delivered through an app called Deliveroo. In Canada, we don't have Deliveroo. We have Skip the Dishes or Uber Eats, for instance. In Ireland, it's Just Eat, I believe. But it's one of these delivery companies. You order from a restaurant and someone drops it to your house. And so they started selling their chocolate bar through this app called Deliveroo. And guess what? It went down like a lead balloon. They were only selling 1 bar per week. You heard that correctly. 1 bar per week. Now, can you imagine you've been working on a project for over 2 years and you're only selling 1 bar per week? You've had this mad idea to set up a company, invest God knows how much money, and you're only selling 1 bar per week? What would you do? What would you actually do in that situation? Quote, "There were so many times we wanted to give up," Mrs. Hamuda said. And they were ready to throw in the towel. They were ready to quit. They were ready to call it quits. But thankfully they didn't. They kept going. And over the next year, they continued to modify the recipe until sometime in 2023, Sarah claimed they had finally nailed the recipe and perfected the chocolate bar. But they were still not selling enough. So picture this. It's 2023. You have a product that you know will be successful, but you can't get it out there. You can't get people to buy it. You cannot get enough eyes on your product. What do? In the past, you'd advertise on TV, in newspapers, on billboards, something like that. Yes, you can put ads out on social media, but what is better than that? You just need one thing today. An influencer. And ladies and gentlemen, in Dubai, influencers are not in short supply. Influencers are everywhere in Dubai. So it was on December 18th, 2023 when everything changed for Fix Chocolatier Dessert. After Sarah and her husband reluctantly took a fan's suggestion and sent out some chocolate bars to local influencers, Maria Vajera posted a TikTok video showing off the chocolate bar, showing off its snappy shell, showing off the pistachio cream inside, and she took a huge bite, a messy bite of the chocolate bar. And that led to a waterfall of orders. Mr. Alani said at least 30,000 orders came pouring in. They were getting so many orders that the delivery app, Deliveroo, crashed. Sarah said she can remember throwing her phone into the street. There was a wave of orders, a flood of orders, and they couldn't keep up. Overnight, they went from 1 bar a week to 30,000 orders, all because of one simple 30-second TikTok video. That's it. One TikTok video, and suddenly these guys have made it. Suddenly they have become successful. Suddenly they're finally selling more than just one chocolate bar per week. And suddenly they can't keep up with the orders. So today things are better. The Fix team has grown to 50. The bar has gained a global following. Lindt, the Swiss chocolatier, who you're probably familiar with, even created a version for a limited release of 300 bars in December. Deliveroo said that last year the Can't Get Enough of It bar was the top item ordered worldwide. After leaving the brand in 2022, Noel rejoined Sarah in 2024, launching 3 limited edition flavors under his own label, Chef Noel Cadiz. So very interesting so far. We're not finished yet, but this is so interesting. You know what? These chocolate bars are made by hand. They're packaged by hand. They would take so long to make. And despite everything, they were only selling 1 bar per week. You know, I mentioned in there how it went down like a lead balloon. You know, they launched it on their website. They launched it through an app, Deliveroo. And I said it went down like a lead balloon. They were only selling 1 per week. When someone says go down, like how did the party go down? How did the joke go down? It just means how was it? Was it successful or not? And in this case, it was incredibly unsuccessful. It was not one bit successful. They were selling 1 bar per week. And it went down terribly. It went down poorly. It went down in the worst imaginable way. Nobody was buying it. Or you can say it went down like a lead balloon. A balloon is usually light, lead is heavy, and so a lead balloon is going to fall to the ground quickly with a very loud bang. Have you ever told a joke somewhere that went down like a lead balloon? Or have you ever said something that went down like a lead balloon? Maybe you said something and it was really, really awkward. And you got a few people looking at you like, who is this person? Oh, I made a joke at the wedding, but it went down like a lead balloon. There's a good one. If you're ever giving a speech for a wedding, don't try to be too funny. You're not a comedian. Unless you are a comedian, then be funny. But generally speaking, we're not all comedians. So if you try to make a joke at a wedding about the groom or the bride, make sure it's appropriate, because there's nothing worse than a speech going down like a lead balloon. You know what I mean? Anywho, so these guys are ready to call it quits. They're ready to throw in the towel. They were ready to quit. Call it quits. I thought that was an interesting phrase, so I put it in there. When you call something quits, it just means you're stopping. You're not going to continue it. You're finished. Hey, do you want to call it quits? It's 5 p.m. Time to go home. If you see 2 people arguing or fighting, guys, call it quits. Just give up. Stop fighting with each other. Or maybe you're arguing with someone for a long time and you're like, hey, can we just call it quits? Can we stop arguing and just move on, please? So QUITS, to call it quits. If you're working on a project and you feel you're not going to finish tonight, look, I think we should call it quits for tonight. We're not going to finish. Let's start again tomorrow. Oh, don't tell me you're calling it quits. We're almost there. You know, a few different ways that you can use call it quits. Now, in that part of the story, I also spoke about how everything changed for Fix Chocolatier dessert. And I spoke about how one 30-second TikTok video led to the change, led to a waterfall of orders. I mentioned how orders came pouring in. I mentioned how there was a wave of orders. There was a flood of orders coming in. They were saturated with orders. And all those descriptions I'm talking about are using liquid or water, for example, as a go-to, as a method. So there was a waterfall of orders. The orders came pouring in like water comes pouring in the door during a flood. They were flooded with orders. There was a flood of orders. There was a wave of orders. And we use that terminology not just with orders or money, but when something happens in a wave-like form where it suddenly comes up and consumes you. Have you ever been swimming in the ocean and a wave just goes over your head completely? There's nothing you can do to stop it. Well, imagine that was orders or money coming in. You'd be delighted. Oh, we got a wave of orders because of that video. Oh, because I put an ad on Facebook, I got a wave of orders. I got a waterfall of orders. Hundreds, thousands came pouring in. It was great. Anywho, all it takes is one TikToker, and that TikToker is now responsible for this company making it instead of breaking it. So on the website, there's a bunch of signs, a bunch of notices talking about how they are the OGs, the original gangsters of Dubai chocolate. They have so many signs on their website that say, buy the original Dubai chocolate, we ship to you. Get the best, get the original, get the very first Dubai chocolate. And then of course that led me down a whole new rabbit hole to just the world of Dubai chocolate. Because when I first started looking into this, I thought Lindt Chocolate were the creators of it. Creators of Dubai chocolate. And I thought they just stuck the name Dubai chocolate on a regular bar and hiked the price. Turns out I was very, very wrong. And suddenly, my world has opened up. Because there are hundreds of copycats and knockoffs. Because every time a person has success with something, there will be copycats. There will be knockoffs created. For example, Vanessa Liang of Foodie Farm Babe on social media. She created her very, very own version of Dubai chocolate called The Taste of Dubai. And this was a dark chocolate shell, a gold chocolate filling with pistachio cream, toasted turmeric and caramelized pistachios. And you can purchase this chocolate bar for only 100 Canadian dollars. And how long did those bars take to sell out? About 3 to 5 minutes, she said. So on her website, she cheekily says, sorry Dubai, the best Dubai bar is made in Saskatchewan. Which I personally found to be hilarious, and I'll explain why in a second. But that is absolutely insane. That Foodie Farm Babe created her own bar and sold it for $100 Canadian. And she's from Saskatchewan, Canada. Saskatchewan, look it up on a map. Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan. It is a province in Canada where nothing happens. It's a huge field. You can see your dog run away for a week. It's so flat. There's no mountains or anything like that. And that's why I love it so much, because Saskatchewan could not be more different to Dubai. And she says the best Dubai bar is made in Saskatchewan. I loved it. I laughed out loud when I read that. So Mrs. Hamouda and Mr. Alani are not happy about the knockoffs. Of course they're not. But Chef Noel is. And he says, quote, for me, the biggest form of flattery is always when you copy someone's work. And I have no problem with that at all, because it means you've done something over and above what you've expected. When people copy you, that means you've really triggered a lot of their emotions or creativity. End quote. I love that. I'm on Chef Noel's side. Yeah, Hamuda and Alani are not happy, but I'm not surprised, because to me they come across as the capitalists in the situation here, the money makers, the business people, where Chef Noel has a passion for food. Now in Europe, knockoffs of Dubai chocolate have triggered legal action. In January 2025, a German court in Cologne decided that Aldi had to stop selling its product named Alain Dubai handmade chocolate because it might mislead consumers due to the chocolate being produced in Turkey. Now that's a bit controversial. So they're selling a chocolate bar that says Dubai on it, but it's not actually from Dubai. Yeah, that's sneaky. The case had been brought by German candy importer Andreas Wilmers, and he sells the authentic Dubai chocolate made by Fixed Dessert Chocolatier. And so in December, he filed similar complaints against Lidl and Lindt, and those cases are still ongoing. So this guy, Andreas Wilmers, imports the original Dubai chocolate, so obviously he's trying to close the market. He doesn't want people bringing in knockoffs, not because he cares about the product, because he cares about money, let's be honest. He wouldn't care if he was making all the money. But if he has the original Dubai chocolate and it's in a supermarket beside a knockoff, well, people might go for the knockoff instead. In the UK, due to the demand for the Lindt variety of this chocolate bar, supermarkets had to actually impose limits of 1 or 2 bars per customers only. Furthermore, according to some news articles, the popularity of Dubai chocolate has increased so much that the shortage of pistachios has gotten worse. So if you want pistachios, if you want Dubai chocolate, get them now. But do be careful. Check where your Dubai chocolate is from. It could be from Dubai, it could be from Turkey, or it could be from Saskatchewan, Canada. Well, there's a lovely story for you folks. That is overall the big story of Dubai chocolate. Long story short, Sarah Hamuda gets pregnant and has cravings for chocolate and kanafe. She tries to make a bar, but she can't do it, so she gets help from Chef Noel from the Philippines. Chef Noel and her set up a company called Fixed Chocolatier Dessert, and he creates 5 chocolate bars for the company, including Can't Get Enough of It, which is the original Dubai chocolate bar. By the time they started selling the bar more frequently, Chef Noel had parted ways with the company. He went in a different direction, and Mr. Yalani, Sarah's husband, became partner. So now we have Sarah and her husband running the company, and Chef Noel is not part of it. However, Chef Noel and Fixed Chocolatier Dessert had a good working relationship, so that's positive. However, they were unable to sell anything. They were selling 1 bar per week. So they reluctantly sent their product to local influencers. One of them put up a video that lasted 30 seconds and has got over 100 million views. And because of that video, they got a waterfall of orders. They got 30,000 orders overnight. And suddenly they became successful. The couple are not happy about the knockoffs or copycats of Dubai chocolate. However, Chef Noel is, because it shows that you inspired something in someone when they copy your work. I really love that about him. That's what I love about him the most, I think, is that he's not pissed. He's not angry that these people are copying his product. But he's like, do it. Make it better. Let's see what variety you can come up with. He has inspired something. So people are like, oh, this is good. Let me change it a little bit. I think that's really nice. A knockoff. A knockoff is not the original. I was in China last year. Guys, I had a great time in China. It was so much fun. What a fantastic country, and I must tell you more about it in the future. But in China, I was able to buy a bunch of knockoff clothing products. So they didn't have Gucci, but they had Mucci, for example. And it's written in the same way that Gucci is written, but it's not Gucci, it's Mucci. They didn't have Columbia there, they had Columbia there. A different brand, but it looked the exact same. The logo was the exact same as Columbia, and Columbia is a brand I like, and I still wear those pants today. So when I was in China, I bought a bunch of knockoff products. I did not buy the original products, but I bought versions of them that look identical. When I was in New York, the first time I was in New York, I was 10 years old, and everything was blowing me away completely. And I remember walking through a park and a man came up to us with a long trench coat jacket, and he opened his jacket and it was full of watches. Lots and lots and lots of watches. All wristwatches, all of them were likely knock-off watches. He had Rolexes for sale. No, he didn't. He had a knockoff of a Rolex, not a real Rolex. Those are thousands of dollars. But he had so many knockoffs in his jacket. It was really cool. It's something I'll always remember. The last thing I'll say about knockoffs. Can you think of a product that you would never buy a knockoff of, that you would only buy the original? Or can you think of a product that you would never buy the original and you're more than happy to buy knockoff versions of it? Sometimes knockoffs are great. Sometimes a knockoff is terrible. It just depends. Anywho, that is the story of Dubai chocolate, my friends. So now, next time you're in the supermarket and someone says, "Hey, what's that? Dubai chocolate?" Now you can at least tell them some things about it. You can tell them how it was created, or the idea was created by a woman who was pregnant and she had cravings. You can explain how a Filipino chef actually made it for the very first time. You can say how a TikToker made that company famous and that chocolate bar famous, and now it's everywhere in the world and it's super expensive. You can say how on the Fixed Chocolatier website, they do not mention Chef Noel at all. He is not mentioned there once. I thought that was very rude. Go on their website, have a look. Another thing I noticed about their website is they deliver worldwide. And it just got me thinking again about the high-endness of this type of food. Can you imagine you're in New York, imagine you're in Paris, imagine you're anywhere in the world, and on the table there's Can't Get Knafa, the original Dubai chocolate. That sends a message to some people. Not to me it's just a chocolate bar, but some people would appreciate that nice touch. And I think that is really about it for this episode of Little Seal English. There's a lot of other English there that we could talk about, but I mean, I mentioned how it took the world by storm, so it became incredibly popular very, very quickly, for instance. I mentioned to splurge, brought up in different types of cravings and how cravings are part of your brain's reward system firing, for instance. Different cravings for caffeine, or I have a craving for coffee. Anyone want one? Something that you could say, for instance. Stress can trigger cravings. So many things can trigger cravings. It's very interesting. Spoke about how Sarah lacked the skills. She didn't have the skills. So Sarah lacked the skills to create the chocolate bar, so she got help. She was very smart. A lot of people lack skills but don't try to do anything, but Sarah at least understood that she didn't have the skills. She understood that she lacked the skills and therefore she got help. Some examples with lack. You might lack the passion, or you might have the passion but you lack the skills, and that was the situation for Sarah. Sometimes people lack confidence to speak up, lack confidence to put themselves in certain situations. You can lack ambition. You can lack belief. You can lack money, something physical. You can lack skills. And like Chef Noel does not lack the skills. He has all the skills, but maybe Chef Noel lacks the skills to do social media, lacks the skills to advertise something. Maybe, I don't know. Do you lack motivation? Do you lack drive? Very quickly, drive is long-term desire. Motivation, it can come and go in short bursts. You know, I have drive to be self-employed. The motivation comes and goes, but my drive is getting me there all the time. Maybe you lack funding to fill your dreams or to achieve your dreams. You lack time. So Sarah lacked the skills and she got help. Very smart. I spoke about how some things can go down like a lead balloon. And that just means it's received poorly, very, very poorly. You say something and the people around you do not like what you said. Spoke about how Kanafe is to Arabs what cheesecake is to the West. Hockey is to Canadians what soccer is to many countries like Brazil or Argentina, for instance. And I spoke about copycats and knockoffs, and that is where I'm going to leave it. Thank you for listening to this episode of Little Seal English, all about Dubai chocolate.
And that's it for this week, my friends. That is my podcast all about Dubai chocolate. I hope you learnt something. You can join my Telegram group. Did you know I have a Telegram group? You should join it. A lot more useful English tips there, more real English. Of course, I'm also on YouTube and everything like that. And if you want to support me and buy me a coffee, you can. buymeacoffee.com/littleseal. That would be greatly appreciated. For now, though, I'm going to move on and start planning my next episode of the podcast. It could be a story podcast, it could be a grammar podcast, a vocab and idiom one. Who knows? If you have any requests, let me know. Send me an email. You can contact me at ronan@littlesealenglish.com or hit me up on Instagram, Telegram, anywhere like that. I'm going to leave you with about 15 or 30 seconds of nice piano music to just relax and daydream. Bye for now.